Assalamu alaikum everyone, my name's Farah Halabi and I'm a professional Muslimah life coach, and something happened today in a client session and we were speaking about what was going on in her world and how the opinion that she holds of herself unknowingly is sometimes very low. And we were speaking about the internal dialogue, the narrative, the story that percolates, the way we speak to ourselves in our mind. And there was a reflection that came to pass that we are really critical of ourselves. We are our own harshest critic. And the way in which we talk to ourselves is harsher than we would speak to anyone else. We are very judgmental about ourselves. We give ourselves a hard time. And when that internal voice is the one that drowns out or is the loudest voice in your mind, that continuously and persistently and consistently ruminating, going around, is going to elicit a very, very strong feeling. And it's going to be the foundation of a belief that we then might have about ourselves. If you are talking to yourself in a way that is judgmental and harsh and you're being very hard on yourself, that almost becomes a comfort. It's like you're just your normal inner voice. But when we catch ourselves doing that, when we understand that that's what's going on, there is something quite freeing about that, because just as you are the one that is doing the talking, doing the narrating, doing the thinking, the pondering, the beating yourself up, the judging, the giving yourself a hard old time, you can flip that. You can do the opposite. You can do different. You can think different. You can intentionally and purposefully flip that script, change that record, change that dynamic, change that narrative, change that story to one that is kinder, more understanding, more compassionate, more in tune and aligned with who you want to be, how you want to be. And we were speaking about the thinking that we have about ourselves, and so a question that came up in the session was, what's the difference then to think, what's the difference between thinking highly of yourself and arrogance? And that has come up quite a few times actually. But if we look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to us in the Quran, when he refers to us, when he talks directly to us, it's not in harsh tones. He tells us quite clearly that we are the best of people, that we are the best of nations, that we are leaders, that he refers to us in caring and compassionate tones. He calls us, or he refers to us in with love, with kindness, with understanding, with niceness. He's not talking to us in the Quran with harshness, with harsh judgment. He doesn't call us the stupid ones, or the horrible ones, or the dumb ones, or the ones that always make mistakes. He refers to us in very loving and kind and compassionate language. And when we referred that back to what he tells us about how he is as his servant thinks of him, we can't touch him, we can't feel him, we can't see him. Our experience of him is what we perceive, what we think, how we translate, how we make sense of him, what we think of him. So in order to have a quote unquote good relationship with him, we will have that with good thinking, of him with thinking that serves us, to think of him as kind and compassionate and merciful and loving and fair and just, and all of those, the wonderful names that he has that give us an in on, you know, on knowing him better. But our experience of people, of ourselves, of things, of the world is also based on what we think, of what perspective we have, what opinion, what frame, how we frame things, how we, what story we give it, what narrative we give it. And if the narrative about us is harsh, is talking down to ourselves, is judging ourselves, is beating ourselves up, then we will then begin to believe that of ourselves. If we're thinking that of ourselves and talking to ourselves in that voice, we'll begin to believe that, if that is the loudest voice. And the way that that relates to what happened in the client session today was there was this almost false sense of humility that humble people, non-arrogant people, don't have a high opinion of themselves. And that if someone does have a high opinion of themselves, it could lead to arrogance. And when we spoke about the difference between having good thinking about ourselves and being, you know, having a high opinion of ourselves that would possibly lead to arrogance, the difference that was put forward was, in arrogance, any opinion, or any high opinion, if you like, or you know, thinking highly of yourself, is attributed to the person. It's, I'm so wonderful, I'm amazing, I'm great at this, and you know, and from that being a confident statement to an arrogant statement, it's where the level of ability, or how that came about, is given to the person. But to have good thinking about, to have good beliefs about yourself, is to refer that goodness back to Allah. That Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted me this soft, kind heart. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me with these opportunities, with family, with a husband, with children, with your job, with your community. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me with these opportunities to be nurturing, to be caring, to be kind, with an amazing mind, with amazing intellect, with capability, with this gift of free will, that I can go out and do good things, do amazing things from a place of being a kind, good, capable, clever, creative, funny, amazing person, but attributing it to Allah. That's not arrogance, that's self-belief, but attributing those characteristics to Allah. So when we spoke about the difference between arrogance and good thinking about yourself, there was this inference, I guess, that arrogance means to have a high opinion of yourself is to be possibly opening yourself up to arrogance. But what's the opposite of having a high opinion of yourself? What's the opposite of arrogance, if you like? Because that, having a high opinion of yourself, I don't think is arrogance at all. But what is the opposite of having a high opinion? It's having a low opinion. And having a low opinion sometimes sits a bit easier, a bit more comfortable. What's the danger in having a low opinion? If the danger, or the perceived danger in having a high opinion of yourself, could lead to arrogance, which is not something that we want, because as we know, if there's an atom of arrogance in our hearts, then, you know, it's game over for us. But what's the opposite fear then? If to have a low opinion, there's no consequence there. There's no kind of danger, if you like, generally, if you have a low opinion. But the danger, the actual reality, the actual consequence of having low opinion, low thinking, not empowering thoughts about ourselves, is that we then open ourselves to finding our, or looking for our definition, looking for our worth, looking for our value in things, in people, in circumstances outside of us. Now, this was at the end of a conversation that we, the session that we were having, and so it was brought to a close. But something that came up when I was when we were talking was how an understanding, or what we perceive to understand about a word, is so subjective. All words are neutral. All words are. But it's what we take to mean about them. Like a high opinion. They're just two words. But if that is signalling off to you arrogance, you know, thinking highly of themselves in almost a negative way. Oh, he thinks a lot of himself, doesn't he? He's full of it. He's full of his own self-importance. Then, yeah, that would tip the scale of arrogance. But the words high opinion, to have a high opinion of yourself. Do you have a high opinion of yourself? Does that make you feel easy or uneasy to think of yourself highly? Or on the opposite end, do you think you have a low opinion of yourself? And what's the fear or danger in that? Is there a consequence of that for you? Now, I know as always, I've asked a lot more questions than I've given answers, but I'm really, as you know, I'm a bit of an nosy Parker, but I would love to know what comes up for you. Are you someone that has that internal dialogue, that internal conversation with themselves that is berating, that is harsh, that is unkind, that is beating yourself up, that is a constant harsh monologue? And what's the consequence of that for you? Do you find that you do that to yourself? And why do you think that is? And what would it mean for you to be able to flip that? To be able to intentionally think kinder thoughts about yourself. Have a higher opinion, whatever that brings up for you. What does that feel like? What does that? Does that make you feel comfortable or uncomfortable? Or no, couldn't do that? Or is it something that you don't even think about? So I'll ask you, if you were to reflect upon what is that internal voice that you have? How do you speak to yourself? What story percolates in your mind? What narrative do you give your life? And what narrative, what monologue are you repeating to yourself about you? And if it's not one that's empowering for you, and if it's not one that isn't uplifting, kind, motivating, inspiring, inspiring's not a word, inspiring, then why do you think that is? And would you like to flip that script? If you would, you know where I am. You can connect with me either via direct message, or you can email me at connect@farahhalabi.com, and I can offer a space to really lay it all out and to see and help you see how that internal voice, that story that percolates, is the basis through which you see things, and how if you change that, if you flip that script, the way in which you think about yourself, if that changes, the way that you feel will change, and the way that you show up in your life will most certainly change. And if you'd like to explore how your life can change, then let me know. Inshallah, as always, I pray that you are safe, well, happy and healthy, and I'll be on I'll be on another time for another little conversation, but for now, take care. Assalamu alaikum.